the other God. God continued speaking to Abraham. And Sarai, your wife, don't call her Sarai any longer, but call her Sarah. I'll bless her. Yes, I'll give you a son by her. Oh, how I'll bless her. The nations will come from her. Kings of nations will come from her. Abraham fell flat on his face. And then he laughed, thinking, can a 100-year-old man father a son? And can Sarah, at 90 years old, have a baby? Recovering, Abraham said to God, oh, keep Ishmael alive and well before you. But God said, that's not what I mean. Your wife Sarah will have a baby, a son. Name him Isaac, which means laughter. I'll establish my covenant with him and his descendants, a covenant that will last forever. And Ishmael, yes, I've heard your prayer for him. I'll also bless him. I'll make sure he has plenty of children, a huge family. He'll father 12 princes. I'll make him a great nation. But I'll establish my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah will give you about this time next year. I love this story. It's an intriguing story. Abraham, the father of the Jewish faith, at 99 years old, he's been promised a child at 75, I believe, and the promise did not come true for 24 years. How long have you been waiting on a promise from God? God never forgets his promises. God never forgets his promises. So he's 99 and the promise has not come true. Sarah got impatient, and Sarah decided that she needed to help God out alone. And how many times have you done that in your life? Waited for an answer to prayer when God didn't answer, you decided you would answer. And Sarah decided that Abraham should have a child by her maidservant so she could not conceive. And they had this child Ishmael born. And so when God says to him, Abraham at 99, you're going to have a son yet, Abraham kind of prays, oh God, we've got Ishmael. Well, let's just bless and let Ishmael be it. Why did he say that? We always hear about the great faith of Abraham, but that doesn't sound like great faith to me, does it you? At 99, to be told you're going to have a child. And so we've already got one child, let's just pass the blessing on to this one. And that wasn't what God had in mind at all. So I don't know about Abraham's faith. I think he was a human being very much like us that needed God's powerful touch in his life. A good man, a decent man, a man that had some faults, if you read his story, and you read it well. A good, decent man. At 99, told he's going to be a dad. I don't know about that faith. I don't know about that faith. If somebody told you today you were going to have a child, and you were my age, 50, what would you do? Panic? Probably. But faith? I doubt it. I think about that story, and I think about, in our day and age, if any senior citizen decided to have a baby, and I heard one time about a lady who was 66 and pregnant. Can you imagine that phone call to Medicare? You finally get through to Medicare, and then you have to ask them for the maternity section in Medicare. I would not be surprised if the government actually had such a section, would you? They just might. But there she is, and at 90, and faith issues. I heard a story one time about a nun, a group of nuns in a car traveling someplace, they run out of gas. Didn't have any money. And one of the stronger nuns decided she would walk for help, and she gets out and she's got a little black habit on and all that stuff. She walks 2 miles to a gas station, gets to the gas station, and says to this gentleman who runs the place, me and my sisters are running out of gas down the road here, and we don't have any money. Could you do us a favor and bless God's work and just give us some gasoline? He said, well, yeah, I can do that, sister. He said, but I don't have a thing here to put it in. And they got looking around for something to put that gasoline in, and the only thing they could find was what used to be called a pot. Now, y'all live long enough to know what a pot is. Okay, the only thing he finds was he finds the house pot, and they put some gasoline in, about a gallon's worth, and she walks down the road carrying that pot. And the sister was so glad to see her that they jumped out of the car to help her, and they're all huddled around trying to pour the gasoline out of that pot in the back end of that car's fuel tank. Truck driver comes by and decides to stop and try to help him. He gets out and sees them pouring that gasoline out of that pot. into the car, and he says to her, "Sister, I sure admire your faith." Younger people didn't get that. The older folks explained it to them later. Okay? Such was Abram's life. Not much faith, I think. Walk with God, yes, but not much faith. So much like us. In Abram's life, what we see is, first of all, no direction. Abram lived a nomadic existence. He went from one thing to another. Here, there, to and fro. He lived a nomadic life. There are so many people like that in our day and age. They don't have a lot of direction. They jump from here to there. Today will have this purpose in mind, and they'll think about doing this with their life, and tomorrow they'll think about doing something else, and back and forth and to and fro. Not much direction in life. You know somebody like that? Child and grandchild. Drive 20 different careers and nothing quite worked out. They're still kind of looking for their place. This was Abraham. Guys, Abraham had not found direction at 99 years old. Wow. Kind of a wasted life, don't you think? He couldn't find the right focus in his life. Here's a man who, at 75, God had made some promises to him. They hadn't come through, so they decided to hatch the Ishmael plan. And when God says, "I'm still going to work that plan," he says, "Well, no, God probably won't work. Let's just bless Ishmael." No focus in his life. Not a lot of spiritual focus in his life, really, when you look at the story. And then you may remember as Abraham's life goes on that the family that he did have, my grandsons decided to come and help him. This is a preacher's dream come true. Or help Dad or one. Isn't he adorable? He looks so much like James. And he scares me. He's precious. He is precious. He lived long enough that if you remember in his story, his family was corrupted by the culture. His nephew that he was close to, named Lot, went down to Sodom and lived there and really got into it. And his family loved the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. His life's not so unlike ours, is it? Lack of direction sometimes, lack of focus, family tainted by the culture. 99 years old, no future, no legacy, no one to leave all the things he accumulated to in life, and that was Abram's life. And Abram's life is so much like modern man's life, isn't it? So many people in the culture have no direction, no focus. So many people's families corrupted by the culture. So many families who really don't have an optimistic outlook on life and not much of a future to look to. You think about a legacy, they're befuddled and have nothing to say. But something happened in Abram's life. He became Abraham. Look at Abraham's life with me. In his life, he had purpose. He was told by God. He was told by God to go with me to a land that I will show you. And he went. And he found that land, the land of Israel. All of a sudden, because God came into his life, he had purpose. Strangely, in this story, isn't God gracious and merciful? God says to him when he brings up Ishmael, "I've heard your prayers about Ishmael. I will bless Ishmael." Do you get the sense that Abraham knew that? I get the sense that he didn't. I get the sense that he prayed the prayer, but he wasn't really sure God would answer that. And God finally said to him, "Yeah, I've heard your prayer about Ishmael. I'm going to bless Ishmael. He's going to be a great nation also." But in Abraham's life, not only does he have purpose all of a sudden, he has prayer answered. In Abraham's life, all of a sudden, he has promise in his life. Promise in his life. All of a sudden, at 99, he realizes that old promise, God really is going to fulfill. I am going to have a child. And God's saying to him, not just that he's going to have a child, but he's going to be a father of a great nation. And at 99, Abraham hadn't made the first step yet. I don't see a lot of faith in Abraham. I wish Abraham was more like the old gentleman I heard about who was a confirmed bachelor, And finally, at 62, he met the woman of his dreams and decided to get married. And as he decided to get married, he started looking for a house near a school. Older folks, young people didn't get that one again. You explained it to them after church. I wish I could say Abraham had that faith, but he didn't. But all of a sudden, because God came into his life, he's a person of promise. And he's going to have a posterity. He's going to have a legacy. Now, you've got to put yourself in Abraham's spot. If you were 99 and you lived that long and still hadn't had a child, and God comes and says, I'm going to make you be the father of a great nation, and you hadn't had the first child, it would take a great measure of faith to believe that, would it not? Indeed it would. So I don't want to be real hard on Abraham because I think he's us. But all of a sudden he has all these things. Once he had no direction, no focus, a family corrupted by the culture, no future, no legacy. Because of God. He has purpose. Prayer answered, promise, and posterity. What made the difference? What made the difference? Two things made a difference. Two things made a change. Abraham had a conversion experience. It is that simple. Abraham's story is a lot like mine and a lot of people I know. For a lot of us, it's difficult to pinpoint when we were converted because it was a process over some time. Abraham's story was just like that. Abraham's story was not an Apostle Paul singular event in his life, but he was truly converted. Pastor, how do you know that? The difference is the ha. Why in this story is the difference between Abraham and Sarah's name the ha sound? You'll no longer be called Abram, but Abraham. Ha. No longer called Sarai, but Sarah, the ha sound. What is it? You know what that is? It's the breath of God. It is the Spirit of God. In the Old Testament, name changes typically denote conversions. It's the breath of God in Abraham and Sarah's life. This is a point of their conversion story here, a major turning point. They're changed. They're different. Abraham will have another experience in his life. He'll have that child when he's 100 years old. A few years will pass, and one day he'll feel God say to him, take the child and make a sacrifice. He takes little Isaac, he takes some wood for the sacrifice. He tells little Isaac they're going to make a sacrifice up in the wilderness someplace, and they go off. Just stand. Little Isaac asks where the sacrifice is. Last night, my son John asked me what I was preaching on today, and I told him I was preaching on this subject, and he told me up front he wasn't taking any trips with me. Till Isaac gets up there and realizes at some point when his dad ties him up that he's a sacrifice. And that promise that God made, that calling the nation thing, is back on the altar. And he raises that knife, and then God stays his hand. And guys, in its cultural context, that is an anti-child sacrifice story. That's the original context of that. But I'm saying to you this, it is also part of Abraham's conversion experience because it gave him great insight into the love of God in Christ Jesus. In the 1600s, Martin Luther, the great reformer, was talking about this story with his wife, Catherine von Bora.